Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine the revolution hits its ultimate goal. The monarchy's gone, right? The king's head is off. They declare a republic.
Big victory.
Exactly. The shouting dies down, the dust settles, and for a moment it must have felt like anything was possible. But what happens after that? Did France really get the freedom they fought for?
Well, that's the crucial question, isn't it?
Because, spoiler alert, things got very weird, very fast. Profoundly weird. So today, we're doing a deep dive into that period after the French Revolution. We're going from those initial ideals, liberté, égalité, fraternité, all the way to the rise of an emperor, which is unexpected, to say the least.
It really is. And what's fascinating here, what's critical, is we're looking at excerpts from after the French Revolution, chaos and empire. Our mission really is to pull out the key nuggets of knowledge.
The important bits.
Precisely. To help you, our listener, understand not just what happened, because it's a chaotic period, but why it went down the way it did, and importantly, what the lasting implications are, for how we think about change, power, freedom.
Right. This is sort of a shortcut through that complexity.
Exactly. We want you to really grasp the aftermath, which is full of paradoxes beyond just the surface story.
Absolutely. And it's a story packed with twists that really challenge how we think about progress, about liberation. So let's just rewind a tiny bit. Back to 1789, the start of it all.
The Big Bang.
Yeah. And this wasn't quiet. This was generations of simmering anger boiling over. Enlightenment ideas, sure, but also just grinding poverty, an incredibly unfair system. People were furious.
Absolutely furious. The ancient regime, it was unsustainable.
Well, they were really shouting, liberté, égalité, fraternité, freedom, equality, brotherhood. On paper, it sounds perfect, right? The blueprint for a better world.
It did. I mean, on the surface, it's completely laudable, inspiring. You picture this new era of reason, fairness for everyone. They wanted to dismantle that old system, the absolute monarchy, the privileged nobles, the clergy, the lack of rights for almost everyone else.
The common person finally getting a voice?
That was the goal. Create a just society, get rid of aristocratic privilege, equality before the law. There was this incredible energy, this belief they were forging a better future, maybe even for the whole world.
You think about the Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen, August 89.
Exactly. Universal rights. That resonated far beyond France.
And for a moment, it felt real. You had the storming of the Bastille in July 89, that symbolic hit against tyranny. Then the Declaration, then forcing the royals from Versailles to Paris.
Huge moments. Transformative.
It really felt like a new dawn, genuine revolutionary fervor, this intoxicating energy, driving things forward super fast. But here's where it takes that sharp, brutal turn.
It really does.
That initial idealism, that hope, it didn't last. It went somewhere much, much darker, very quickly.
Indeed. Those lofty ideals. They took a really dark turn. And you get this, let's call it a surprise character dominating the stage.
Yeah.
The guillotine.
Yes, the national razor.
The beautiful symbolism of liberty and reason just gets overshadowed by extreme political violence. The revolution started with such noble aims, gets bogged down in division, paranoia, reprisals.
And outside threats didn't help, I imagine. Other monarchies looking on.
Exactly. European monarchies were horrified, plotting intervention. That just cranked up the paranoia inside France even more. It led to increasingly severe measures against anyone seen as an enemy.
And severe measures is putting it mildly. By 1793, King Louis XVI, gone, tried and executed. Then Queen Marie Antoinette. Guillotined. The definitive end of the monarchy. France declares itself a republic. This should be the ultimate win, right? People power, the old order smashed. Clear path to liberty.
You'd think so, but no, not really, or at least not the kind of liberty people imagined. What follows immediately is the Reign of Terror.
Led by Robespierre.
Primarily, yes. Maximilian Robespierre and the radical Jacobins. And this wasn't a celebration of the new republic. It was intense paranoia, mass arrests, systematic executions.
How bad are we talking?
We're talking late 1793 to mid-1794. Officially, around 17,000 executions by guillotine across France.
17,000.
And estimates suggest maybe another 10,000 died in prison or without trial. And these weren't just aristocrats. No, ordinary citizens. And chillingly, former revolutionaries. People deemed not revolutionary enough or suspected of disloyalty, lacking virtue. It was state-sponsored political cleansing.
Justified as protecting the revolution.
Exactly, protecting it from enemies, real and imagined, both internal and external.
It's truly unsettling. It really is like a revolution that starts eating its own children. Or slicing them, in this case.
It is.
The scale, the randomness. Imagine living through that. Your neighbor, your friend, denounced anonymously, arrested, guillotined within days, no real defense.
The very people who championed freedom were living under a new kind of tyranny, maybe even more terrifying because it was cloaked in this language of the people's will, of virtue.
So how does that happen? How does a movement for liberation just consume itself like that?
That's the critical question, isn't it? The Reign of Terror is this stark case study. You have radical ideals, plus intense fear, plus a lack of checks and balances, and it just spirals into violence.
The paradox is huge. Freedom leads to repression.
It's profound. Unlike, say, the American Revolution, which had some existing legal traditions, France had to tear down everything. Absolute monarchy, feudalism. There was no blueprint for a republic.
So it was kind of make it up as you go along.
In a way, yes. And revolutionary purity became everything. Plus, you have internal counter-revolutionaries and external monarchies invading. It created this desperate siege mentality.
So dissent wasn't just disagreement, it was treason.
Exactly. It was seen as an existential threat. And the insight here is how the absence of agreement on basic institutions, combined with that extreme pressure, can weaponize ideals like freedom into justifications for brutality.
Suspicion becomes the default.
Right. Any deviation, any questioning could be treason. It's a vicious cycle. Each purge fuels more paranoia, justifies more purges, until the revolution seems to be devouring itself.
And the man at the center of it all, Robespierre. That spiraling intensity eventually got him too, didn't it?
Precisely. As time went on, his fanaticism, his control, just became more and more absolute. He wasn't just executing enemies. He was trying to reshape French society entirely, imposing this rigid moral purity.
Like the cult of the supreme being.
Exactly.
Yeah.
His own state religion. He led that big public festival for it. He banned Sundays, tried to de-Christianize society, closed churches, even changed the calendar to erase Christian links.
Which must have alienated a lot of people.
Huge numbers. People who supported the revolution but still held traditional beliefs. These weren't just political acts. They were attacks on the social fabric.
So people started thinking, hang on, we wanted freedom, not this. Not a philosophy class with death penalties.
Pretty much.
Yep.
Enthusiasm turned into exhaustion and fear. Years of upheaval, economic hardship, then the terror. People just craved stability. Robespierre's vision just seemed detached, extreme.
He pushed too far.
He pushed way too far. His extreme measures, his isolation. Even former allies started seeing him as a new tyrant. They realized they just traded one absolute power for another, maybe scarier one.
Because this one claimed to be virtuous.
Exactly. And the law he used, the law of 22 Prairial, basically removed due process. That put everyone at risk, including the people in the government. That was the final straw.
And the backlash was swift. July 1794, Thermidor.
The 9th of Thermidor. He's arrested, and after a chaotic day, guillotined.
The irony. The guillotine gets its architect.
Chilling, isn't it? And his downfall brought this huge collective sigh of relief across France. You could almost feel it.
The feeling must have been, okay, no more terror. Please, let's just have a government that doesn't kill everyone.
That was absolutely the mood. Not just political change, but emotional, societal. A desperate search for order, for normalcy after years of extremism and violence. People were exhausted.
Utterly drained.
By the constant emergencies, the purges, the fear. Stability became the priority. Even if it meant compromising some radical ideals. They'd trade some liberty for peace and predictability.
Okay, so terror ends, Robespierre's gone. What next? How do they build that stable, less bloody government?
Well, they try. That's where we get the Directory, established in 1795.
The Directory, okay.
The idea was a collective executive, 5 directors sharing power.
To stop another Robespierre or another king.
Precisely. Diffuse the power. Sounds balanced, doesn't it?
Sounds good on paper, like maybe this will work.
It was certainly the intention, but connecting this to the bigger picture, it's fascinating how quickly this attempted stability just unraveled. The theory was sound, the execution, not so much.
Why not? What went wrong?
Well, the Constitution they operated under, the Constitution of Year 3, deliberately made the executive weak and divided to prevent tyranny. But that just led to paralysis.
And was it effective?
Frankie. It was a total mess. I mean, a complete disaster. Think college group project, but with military coups. It was corrupt, confused, constantly broke. They inherited an economy in ruins.
From the revolution and the wars?
Exactly. And they just couldn't fix it. Hyperinflation was rampant. The assignats, the paper money, worthless.
So people were starving again.
People were starving again.
Yeah.
Widespread food shortages, that's usually a sign your government isn't working. They were basically funding themselves by plundering territories their armies conquered abroad.
Not a sustainable model.
Not at all. And this failure to fix the economy to meet basic needs just bred cynicism and resentment. People were already worn out.
And the 5 directors, were they working together?
Not really.
Yeah.
Constant infighting, gridlock in the legislature, effective governance, almost impossible. They were constantly leaning on the military just to keep order at home.
So weak government, bad economy. What about politically? Was it stable?
Not even close. It was like political whack-a-mole. You had royalists constantly popping up, trying to restore the monarchy through uprisings.
Trying to turn back the clock.
Right. And on the other side, you still had radical Jacobin types who felt the Directory wasn't revolutionary enough, pushing for more extreme measures.
So enemies on both sides.
Constantly battling, left and right. They were barely holding on, often resorting to annulling elections or using military force just to stay in power. No consensus, no strong leadership, no popular support.
Just chaos, really.
Perpetual instability. And this incompetence, this chaos, led to this desperate public craving for someone decisive. France was utterly exhausted by this point.
They'd tried everything.
Absolute monarchy, radical republic ending in terror, now this weak, corrupt committee that couldn't keep people fed or safe. People were just tired. They wanted order.
Someone to just fix it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Can someone please just take over and sort this out? This created the perfect opening for a new kind of leader. Someone promising competence and order, even if it meant less liberty.
Enter stage left.
Napoleon Bonaparte.
The man of the hour. He'd been busy, hadn't he? While the politicians were squabbling in Paris.
He was out winning battles. Italy, Egypt, projecting strength, glory, a military genius, gaining fame, expanding French territory, bringing back spoils.
A stark contrast to the Directory.
Absolutely. His rise wasn't luck. It was competence, brilliance on the battlefield versus the Directory's failure and corruption. He led armies to victory while the government couldn't even pay them sometimes.
So he built loyalty.
Immense loyalty among his troops. And growing recognition from the public. People saw him as someone who could actually do things. He embodied French pride, national power. He understood the nation's exhaustion.
So the country needs a hero. Napoleon's right there. What does he do?
He seizes the moment. November 1799. A swift, pretty much bloodless coup d'etat.
Which is French for?
I'm in charge now.
Exactly.
He walks into the legislature, dissolves the Directory, declares himself first consul. New constitution, he's the top dog.
Just like that. Audacious.
Very.
Yeah.
Walks in, takes over, army backing him, public desperate for change. The irony, of course, is this strong man emerges from a revolution against strong men.
And how does he handle it? Does he immediately become a dictator?
He consolidates power, yes, but skillfully. He positions himself not as a king, but as the savior of the revolution, the one to bring order after a decade of chaos.
But still concentrating power in his own hands.
Absolutely. He was a sharp politician, not just a general. He understood the psychology. He appealed to royalists wanting order and revolutionaries wanting to keep some gains. It was a masterful balancing act initially.
And did he deliver on that promise of stability?
To be fair, yes, he did. His methods were authoritarian, sure, like saving the forest by cutting down the trees, maybe. But he brought order the Directory couldn't.
How? What did he actually do?
Well, he fixed the economy, crucial reforms, ended hyperinflation, food shortages, established the Bank of France in 1800, stabilized the currency with the franc germinal. People could trust money again.
Which is huge for ordinary people.
Massive. Then he created the Napoleonic Code, one clear, consistent set of laws for everyone, replacing the old mess. It enshrined things like equality before the law, even as it centralized power.
And schools.
Reorganized schools, too. A meritocratic system. Opportunity based on talent, not birth. These were concrete improvements. They eased the chaos.
So people felt things were getting better, more stable.
We did. His effective governance was a huge relief after the Directory's incompetence. Many were willing to trade some political freedom for this order and efficiency. He rebuilt institutions, brought financial discipline, restored national pride.
And religion. That was a source of conflict.
He tackled that too. The Concordat of 1801 with the Pope recognized Catholicism as the majority religion, reconciled the church with the state after years of fighting. More stability.
Okay, so he's first consul, bringing order, but then comes 1804.
Ah, yes, the big one.
The jaw-dropping moment. Surprise, he doesn't stay first consul. He crowns himself Emperor of the French.
Emperor Napoleon I.
Not a general, not a consul, emperor.
Yeah.
And the coronation itself, Notre Dame. He takes the crown from the Pope and puts it on his own head.
Doesn't let the Pope crown him.
No. That's some serious, I am the main character energy right there.
Yeah.
A massive statement. My power comes from me, not from God or tradition. Maybe from the will of the people, as he claimed.
And if we connect this back, this is where the cycle truly completes. The irony is just, wow.
Right. Revolution against a king ends with an emperor.
Just over a decade later, Napoleon basically says, thanks for the revolution, folks. I'll take it from here, and I'll wear this crown while I do it.
So much for democracy.
Effectively canceled. Republicanism, gone. Replaced by personal rule.
Right.
Freedom. Delayed indefinitely for order and glory. He replaced popular sovereignty with his own authority, even if he used plebiscites to legitimize it.
And people accepted it?
Largely, yes. It highlights that recurring pattern. The cycle of power, the human desire for order, security, predictability, even if it costs liberty. After the Terror and the Directory, many French citizens were willing to accept this new strong rule because it promised an end to chaos and a return to prosperity. They traded unpredictable freedom for predictable authority.
And what an authority. He didn't stop at France, did he?
Oh no. From emperor onwards, his influence explodes. Relentless military campaigns. He builds an empire across half of Europe, Spain, parts of Italy, Germany, Poland, all the way to challenging Russia.
Putting family on thrones, spreading the Napoleonic Code.
Reshaping the map, reshaping politics for generations. He becomes this dominant, transformative figure, spreading some revolutionary ideas, crushing opposition with the other hand. A complex legacy.
So after all that, this wild ride from revolution to empire, what are the big lessons? What should we, the listeners, take away?
Well, first, the revolution itself, despite the terror, despite Napoleon, wasn't a total failure. It did end the monarchy permanently. The Austrian regime was gone for good. Divine right. Shattered in France, weakened everywhere else.
And it shook up social classes.
Profoundly. The erosion of aristocratic privilege, the rise of meritocracy, those were real shifts. Which raises that question. Even when a revolution goes off track, what fundamental changes stick?
And it inspired others.
Absolutely. The idea that people could overthrow a king, establish a republic, even a flawed one that echoed globally for centuries. Movements for self-determination, national liberation. They drew inspiration from France, even with all its contradictions. The ideals resonated, even when the practice failed.
Right. But there's a big cautionary tale here, too, isn't there?
Oh, definitely. How revolutions, even with noble aims, can spiral out of control. And how people, facing chaos, violence, collapse, sometimes make that pragmatic, maybe disheartening choice.
Trading chaos for control.
Exactly. When society's falling apart, economy ruined, violence everywhere, constant fear, abstract freedom can take a backseat to the basic need for stability, for survival. It's not just a choice, it's a trade-off. People might accept strong, even authoritarian leadership if it just promises an end to the suffering.
It's like ordering a salad and getting a flaming pizza instead. It's not what you asked for. Maybe you still eat it because you're starving.
It's a vivid analogy. But yes, it captures that pragmatism born of desperation. The desire for order can override ideology.
And that preference for order over liberty, that's not unique to France, is it?
Not at all. That's a recurring theme. When societies face prolonged instability, the appeal of a strong leader who promises normalcy grows, even if they're authoritarian. It shows that delicate balance between liberty and order, and how hard it is to keep it during massive change. It's complex, contradictory, human.
So what does this all mean for you listening? Maybe it's remembering that history isn't neat, it doesn't follow straight lines, idealism can curdle into extremism, the road to freedom can loop right back to centralized power, even an empire. It's messy, human, full of unintended consequences.
Exactly.
So next time someone talks about starting a revolution, maybe, just maybe, ask what the afterparty might look like first, what sacrifices might be demanded for order down the line. Because history's paths can be very, very unforeseen. Wow, what a journey we've just taken. Fascinating, and sobering too, through post-revolutionary France. From those high hopes of liberté, égalité, fraternité, through the terror, the stumbling directory, and landing with Emperor Napoleon.
It really shows how unpredictable history is, full of paradoxes.
We really hope this deep dive gave you some key insights, a way to understand this incredibly complex time quickly, get beyond the simple stories.
Yeah, our goal is always to help you grasp the underlying dynamics, the human choices, the trade-offs that shape history. because knowledge is most valuable when you see the context, right? See how it applies to bigger patterns.
Keep asking questions.
Definitely. There's always more to learn. Keep exploring these themes. Critical thinking is so important, especially now with so much information flying around. Just like we tried to do today, understand how a revolution for liberty could end up with an emperor. Keep asking why and how, and always look at the bigger picture. History has so much to teach us about right now.